Well, good morning, everybody. How are you doing today? Good? Okay. Not enthusiastically awesome, just good. Mediocre, still alive. All right. What did we talk about last time?
Barriers of entry into corrupt societies.
Barriers to entry. Oh, I like that. That's a nice summary. What do you mean?
How places like, I think we covered Haiti and a couple of other places where there's a million steps that institutions use to block entry so they can put the money in their pockets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like the barriers to entry, as you point out. Absolutely. And this leads to a lack of what? Competition, and that's I was going with economic growth, right? Absolutely. So last time we talked a lot about economic development. How do we get economic growth? What kinds of what do I mean by institutions? By the way, what do you mean? What do you elaborate? Being fair. Being fair to the poor, being fair to the general population, right? So to be clear, when I would talk, for example, about how the United States had more inclusive institutions than historic, and that set the stage. Or the United Kingdom and Britain had more inclusive institutions in previous empires, previous generations. But that doesn't mean it was necessarily fair to the poor. It was just better. Right? And as a result of these more broadly based institutions, it's not like you need to be completely inclusive in order to get economic growth, but you need to be sufficiently inclusive so that politicians care more about a broader spectrum of the economy rather than focusing on one little group, that little group that keeps them in power. Okay. So with that in mind, that's a big area of economics. Does anyone have a big area of economics? Does anyone have any questions about it? Because we covered a lot last time. Are we good on that? Great. So now I want to switch. I talk about something a little bit less depressing and more fun. What's the highest grossing film ever? The highest grossing, we'll do domestic numbers, but just the highest grossing film. Barbie? Is it Barbie? It's not Barbie.
The Citizen Kane?
It's not Citizen Kane. Avatar? Nope. Avatar is number 4. It used to be number 1 back in the day.
So you mean like throughout all of history?
I mean, it grows. That's what I mean by of all time.
Oh.
I mean.
Star Wars?
Oh, yeah. Star Wars. Which one? There's like a ton of them.
Empire Strikes Back?
Not Empire Strikes Back. The first one? What do you mean the first? I don't even know what the first one means. Do you mean episode 1, The Phantom Menace, or do you mean episode 4, The New Hope?
Well, I'm not a Star Wars type of person, so I don't really know.
Wasn't it the recent ones like Rise of Skywalker, whatever the first?
Force
Like one of the Disney ones?
Yeah. Wasn't everybody waiting a long time for those movies and then a lot of
Force Awakens.
So here's box office records. Number 1 is Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens. Then Avengers Endgame. Then Spider-Man No Way Home. And then there's Avatar number 4. Not all Disney. A lot of them are Disney. Yeah.
Avatar is Disney?
I don't know if Avatar is Avatar Disney.
No,
I don't think it's DreamWorks.
What's his name? He's got his own.
It's someone else.
Studio, doesn't he?
Yeah.
James Cameron.
I don't know.
Except the Disney.
But what does this number represent? This lifetime gross. Like what is that? Yeah.
Box office sales plus home releases plus however they calculate streaming revenue.
Yeah. Right. So let's focus on the movie ticket part. That's going to be something that's going to be constant throughout, right? 97 streaming wasn't really a thing, but It's largely composed of movie ticket sales. What do you also notice too about all of these top box office movies? Look at the year.
Pretty recent.
Oh, recent. Is that a coincidence? Yeah.
Most of them are pre-pandemic.
Most of them are pre-pandemic, sure, right? Our Top Gun Maverick not, but most of them are. The Way of Water. I'm surprised it even got up to number 7. Avatar is such a strange. That whole franchise is strange. Because it's like such a top-grossing movie, but it's also like doesn't seem to pierce the culture at all. It's really weird. Well, there's something kind of strange about this though, because we are looking at the top-grossing film, and you always hear such and such broke box office records, and I'm like, well, that's some bullshit. Because how much does a movie cost now? $20 a ticket? 18 something, right? Depends on the time you go, discounts, whatever, where you go exactly. But yeah, how much did a movie cost in, like, I don't know, 1970?
Probably a nickel.
Right? A lot less, maybe $2 or something like that. A lot less. So, at some level, when we talk about breaking box office records, it's stacked in favor of recent movies because prices are higher. And if the prices are higher, the revenues are going to be higher. The revenue is going to be higher just inherently. You're going to then be easier to break box office records. If you sell the same number of tickets than you did, say, 30 years ago, you're going to get more money. In other words, yeah.
But they don't adjust for that. Like, do they not adjust?
Well, the media doesn't like adjusting for it because they want to be able to say things like, we broke box office records. That's dramatic. Just like last time when we talked about like how optimistic are you about the state of the world? And then we realized you guys are way too pessimistic because it's not dramatic to talk about things that are going well. It's dramatic to talk about things that are going badly. And similarly, it's dramatic to talk about people breaking box office records. A professor of mine insisted that the media had some sort of like market bias because that's how they made their money is through markets. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But they do have a drama bias because they're focused on the nominal. Does anyone know what nominal means in economics? Yeah. What does that word look like or remind you of? Nominate? Oh, interesting. I didn't thought about that. That's super right. Makes me think of yeah. Binomial. And binomial is to what? Numbers. When I think of nominal, I think of numbers. I don't know. There's probably some sort of, in the weird history that is English, a connection between nominal and nominate. I'm sure there is. I'm not sure what that connection is. But that's a good catch. I haven't thought about that. But I think of numbers. In other words, you're looking at just the raw number. You are not adjusting for inflation. When economists talk in terms of nominal, like nominal GDP, that means GDP not adjusted for inflation. If we talk about nominal wages, that means wages not adjusted for inflation. We obviously do want to talk about, we obviously do want to adjust for inflation. So why is it impressive that certain films have more money than others? What is that trying to measure?
The money
Earned, and it's also kind of a measure of popularity, right? And that measure of popularity is going to be most fundamentally related to how many people watched it, right? How many tickets they sold, right? In other words, it's hard to measure how many tickets you sell. It's easy to get the numbers, though. They publish the numbers, how much money they make. You have to do that for accounting purposes. But it's hard to get the tickets. But the tickets are what really matters. It's not enough to say I got a raise, but what really matters is what you can buy with that money. Not just how much money that you have for your wage, but also how much everything costs, even after adjusting for inflation. And so, because adjusting for inflation gives us what really matters, when we adjust for inflation, we call it the not nominal GDP, not nominal wage, but no, real. That's what really matters. Real. So, another question for you. Adjusted for inflation, what is the highest grossing film of all time, domestic? Not Titanic. Titanic is up there, but not Titanic.
Year decade.
It was before Titanic.
Yeah, it's probably like black and white.
Nope. Nope, not Lion King. Nope, not Godfather. Nope. I didn't even hear that was, but I know it wasn't it. What did you say? Pulp Fiction, no, great movie, but no, not Pulp Fiction.
Avatar.
Avatar, nope, not Avatar. I'll give you, I will say it was before the 80s. So it was before you were born.
Is the movie about a firefighter or something?
Well, I don't think there were movies in 1880s.
What if it's like a black and white film, like a silent
I think
No, it wasn't a silent film. Nope.
That's a good movie.
it's not
Yeah?
recent.
No, but you're getting closer.
What'd you say?
She said Wizard of Oz. It's getting closer as far as the timeline
Snow White
goes.
or something? Like a Disney movie?
That's pretty high up, but it's not that one. Yeah.
No, it's not the movie.
You said
No, I said before 70s.
4 sets. Oh,
No, bro, it did horrible. Got like a 2 out of 10.
The highest grossing film of all time, adjusted for inflation, is Gone with the Wind. 1937. Oh, sorry, 1939.
Well, the same year. That was in the same year.
Was it the same year?
1939 as well.
Oh, what? Oh, really? Well, that's why I said it was close. So I knew it was around there. So yeah, take a look at these now. Now we're looking at 1939, Gone with the Wind. Star Wars: A New Hope, the first Star Wars movie released, 1977. That's number 2. Sound of Music is number 3. E.T. is number 4. Titanic, which is at least up there, number 5. We got 10 Commandments, Jaws, Dr. Zhivago, Exorcist, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs rounding out. Note that all of these movies, not a single one before the year 2000. Well, before virtually all of them were before. This is how much of a difference inflation can make. If you don't adjust for inflation, over the course of a year, not necessarily a big deal. Over the course of a few years, over the course of a decade, over the course of multiple decades, you start to see a really big difference. Not adjusted for inflation, Gone with the Wind got about 200 million. But if you were to put that in today's money, that is closer to about 1.9 billion dollars. That's why they have this nice estimated number of tickets. Granted, there are re-releases and so forth, and that would include that, but obviously the big push is at the beginning. Yeah.
numbers. I calculated what Avatar would be with inflation over $1 billion. It's like 1.1.
This is using 2022 ticket prices. So, but you can see how we go up to Avatar, then we'll be quite easily. This is 2022 was pretty close. Jurassic Park, by the way, one of my favorite movies. The Lion King is number 20. I'll give it that to you. All right. I'll probably use that later. Inflation is an increase, by definition, an increase in the price level. So during the election, Democrats correctly said inflation has fallen. But people called bullshit because they said, well, prices are still high. And I'm like, oh, God, that's not how it works. Inflation is how quickly prices are rising. It's a velocity, it's a flow, essentially, a growth rate. The price level is a different story. The price level, or PL, is just where all prices are. It's like how full the bathtub is. It's the water level. Inflation is an increase in the price level. What do you suppose a decrease in the price level is? Deflation, like a balloon, right? You blow the balloon up, you inflate it. You let the air out of the balloon, you deflate it. The decrease in PL, the price level. The government keeps track of where that price level is. We'll talk about how they do that in a moment. But they have to keep track of it because they want to make adjustments for inflation. If they did not make adjustments for inflation, people's nominal Social Security checks will be the same, but their real checks will go what? Down. The nominal minimum wage is the same as it has been for a while. The real minimum wage is lower. I say national minimum wage. Businesses too will pay attention to this, and they will sometimes give people raises. These are not raises because you're doing so well. These are raises so you don't eventually get a pay cut. They are called, anyone know what they're called? Cost of living adjustment, COLAs. So not too long ago, they increased Social Security payments because it was a COLA, not because they're being more generous to Social Security recipients and they're saying, oh, in real terms, you're going to get more money. It's so in real terms, they don't lose money. You might get a raise as well, not because you're doing a great job, but because in real terms, they're not giving you a pay cut. By the way, sometimes you will see adjusted for inflation and phrases like $2,010. Or over here, when you saw it, it was like in terms of $20, $22. Okay, how do we measure this? There's a couple of ways to measure it. We're going to focus on, in this class, on the one that gets the most headline, and that's the Consumer Price Index. Also known as the CPI. How many of you have heard of the CPI before? Yeah? Yeah, a little bit. What do you know about it?
It's the average price of a certain number of common goods, right?
Yeah. How many different goods we're talking about?
It's like 30 or 40.
They will look at 38 different geographic locations. And by the way, these will be urban locations. They look at cities because that's where most of the population is. Sometimes you'll see this as the Consumer Price Index for urban areas. But they have over 200 product categories. Not products, product categories. And they will look at not just the price of these goods, but also how much people are buying. Because if people are buying a lot of eggs, then you want to put a lot of weight on that. If people are buying not that many pineapples, you want to put less weight on that. So if the price of eggs goes up and people are buying lots of eggs, it's like, well, that's a big deal. The price of pineapples goes up, less of a big deal. The price of ribbons goes up, even less of a big deal. So they will look at things like, and I had a list, but in my notes, I think though that URL is dead, but let's see if I can pull it up here anyway, and I will tell you what's there as just a reminder, and you can appreciate the detail they go into. Oh, let's see. Oh wait, they put it behind a paywall. Stupid paywall. Okay, fine. So if you have a subscription, I guess, to Business Insider, you will learn that they will have things like not just things we would expect, like rent or healthcare services or eggs, but they also have things like wine at home versus wine in a bar, or men's furnishings, which I think are things like belts and cufflinks. They have a long list of stuff. Gas obviously is on the list, but a whole bunch of other things are on this list too. Well, it's meant to be really good. The problem is certain items fluctuate quite a bit due to issues that are not related to the government. Food prices fluctuate quite a bit due to weather. Energy prices fluctuate quite a bit due to crazy crap going on the international stage. So while CPI is reported and used often, what we call so-called core inflation excludes these really volatile food and energy. If you want to get a better sense on is the government getting inflation under control, core inflation helps you with that. Inflation is a growth rate. Calculate inflation. It would be the new CPI minus the old CPI divided by the old CPI. It's always a percent. Which, just like before, is equal to the new CPI divided by old CPI. I want to emphasize there's other ways to measure inflation. I'm just focusing on the one that makes headlines, which we can do right now. So we got so I'm trying to find the latest. This is done by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and okay, I want to know what it was. So we're going to use the latest numbers. Here we have Consumer Price Index economic release. They released it on Wednesday, March 12th, 2025 for February 2025. They do this every month. They check these prices every month. So we get CPI numbers every month. So here are the CPI. Here's what the CPI is. You see this huge increase right here. This is pandemic, right? Because that's the recession. It used to be clipping along at a very steady pace. That slope was very steady. Then it shot up. It's leveled off, but it's still a higher rate than it used to be. And let's calculate it. I probably should have shrank how much I'm grabbing here, but that's okay. Now note, these are all done in this numbers. You're like, what the hell do these numbers mean? Anyone know what the I is in CPI? What does the I in CPI stand for, David? It was just here. Consumer Price Index. Does anyone know what I mean by index? So an index is just usually
Collection of numbers.
It's a collection of numbers, right? It's used to say, look, we took a bunch of individual numbers and we'll combine them in this way. And so the value, it's kind of hard to tell what it means in isolation, but they always set a baseline. So in this case, I believe the baseline is going to be in 1980, I want to say. Like sometime, yeah, here it is. 1982 to 1984. They set that is 100. And so then everything is a reference to that. So if the CPI is ever 50, like it was in the 1970s, where'd it go? Like it was in, say, right around August 74, then that means prices were half as much as they were on the average between 1982 and 1984. So you always have to have some sort of reference point when you do an index because it's constructed. It doesn't mean very much in of itself. You need something to compare it to. So here's what we're going to compare it to. Here's my number. We have new divided by old, which I'm going to treat it like maybe right here, a year ago, minus 1. And you see we have inflation of 2.8%. So prices are, on average, 2.8% higher than they were a year ago. That's one way to get these numbers. There's slightly different ways to make the adjustments. I'm curious to see which way. I can't remember which way they use. See, did they use that way? Yep, and there you see 2.8%. Over the last 12 months, all items increased 2.8% before adjusting for seasonality. And so when we got the 2.8%, this is where this comes from. You can also look at it at the individual level. You know, what was it over the course of like 1 month? How much did prices rise? You can use that number to extrapolate into the future. But generally speaking, this is where you get the headlines from. Any questions? Okay. Got a lot to do, so let's move on then. The thing about CPI is it does a good job. It doesn't do a fantastic job because it's kind of hard to make some adjustments for things. Julian, let's imagine I were to give you, we'll say $5,000. And I have you a choice. I said you can either spend the money now, or you can go back in time and spend it in 1925 with 1925 prices. But importantly, you can only buy things that are for your own consumption. So whenever I do this, someone's like, I'm going to go back in time, I'm going to buy a bunch of gold. I'm going to go back in time, I'm going to buy some house. No. You have to buy it for yourself, and you're going to be taking it into the future. So if you are buying a car, you're going to have to buy a 1925 car. You're going to drive it as a 1925 car. What do you do? So what are you going to buy in 1925 with $5,000? Because $5,000, we can do the adjustment for inflation here. I don't think this goes all the way back to 1925, nor does it. But we have estimations. So 1925 to now. 91,000. Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to swap it around here. 1925. Just so everyone can see the number.
Oh.
Yeah, we have to do. So $5,000 now has the same buying power. Oh wait, no, that's right. I'm sorry, I set this up wrong. So you want to go back in time. So you have $5,000 in 1925. What is that like now? That is about $92,000. So you have about $92,000 in 1925. What are you buying? That's a lot of food. What's a 1925 car like? Yeah. How fast can it go? It's a pretty cool car, but how fast can it go? Maybe 30? Whee! That's a big deal back then. Does it have seatbelts? Probably not. Does it have airbag? No. Does it have a crash bar on the side? I don't think they had doors. Does it have a radio? Nope. CD player? Nope. Bluetooth? Nope. Nope. But you're happy buying that car? Don't tell me that you're going to sell it, because then that's cheating. Right? You can't sell it to a collector. You might really like that. It might be fun playing with your life. But are you having second thoughts? Yeah. Yeah, David? So you could, but in order to illustrate the point, the rule is you can't go around and resell it. Right? So you have to use it for yourself. Yeah. Land sounds like you want to resell it. Or at least use it. But now you're like,
if you've got a, if you
Uh-huh.
modern day map of mineral rights.
Sure. What I'm saying is, because people always want to use it for investment, and I'm like, I want you to use it for consumption. Land is still good, but again, they can't resell it, so maybe it's not something. Maybe.
Buy a house.
Buy a house, but if you're buying a house, you're living in 1925.
You're not allowed to renovate it as time goes on.
I'm saying you can, but you are spending the rest of your life in 1925.
Oh, so you just transport back to
1925. I'm saying like if you can take it with you, you can take it with you, but you can't take the house with you through the time portal.
Oh, so stay 1925.
You want to stay in 1925? Yeah.
Maybe not me.
But I know what you're saying. But even for set aside the social issues, like, does that house have electricity? How is the running water? What is life like in 1925? Plus, set aside the fact there's a war coming as well, and a Great Depression. My point is, when we think about the quality of goods that we have now versus we had 100 years ago, even though the prices of the goods are a lot higher now in nominal terms, they're so much better that even if you are forced to say, okay, you want to buy like a 1925 car versus a car now, the 1925 car is a lot cheaper, but it's probably not a car you want to drive. Granted, bread in 1925 is probably more or less the same as bread now. That would be fine. So certain food items is fine, but it's not like you can buy a 1925 microwave. It's not like you can buy a 1925 refrigerator. They didn't even have refrigerators. It's just ice boxes, little ice boxes, little things you just had to get the ice delivered. It's cold. My point is, it's hard for this to make adjustments for quality. They have some mechanisms, and it does something, but when you consider the quality of the good, this example is supposed to illustrate that you can make an argument for when you adjust for quality, there's actually deflation. Because I think if push came to shove, people would rather go on a $5,000 shopping trip today than a $5,000 shopping trip. And even if you personally wouldn't do it, there are some people who would, and it's not a trivial number of people. But of course, if I were to do the same thing, but I said, okay, rather than 1925, I made it like 2019, not that long ago, but before a lot of inflation. Prices are a lot lower, not not as big of a change as we see here, but prices are a lot lower. Then maybe you would. Maybe I mean, there's a lot of things that are worth buying in 1918 and in 2018. So it's tricky. It's tricky. Okay. Any questions on that? What's about adjusting for inflation? Generally speaking, inflation, when fully anticipated, doesn't matter. There are two ways to adjust for inflation. I'm giving you the simple way that is not perfectly accurate. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I feel like it's weird because I don't understand how come people are always going to say things are expensive. So it's not like in 2018, even though 2018 price for the general thing was so much better than prices now for like a general item.
Mm-hmm.
People in 2018 were still like, oh, this. No one was like, oh my gosh, these prices are so good.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, it's so expensive.
You
Still.
see how the CPI is always increasing though,
Yeah.
right? It's never going down. With tiny little exceptions, but generally speaking, yeah. And then people will say, "Oh, I got a raise. That raise must be because of my own competence, and because I'm so great." People never like point to a cola and say that's why you got the raise. You didn't get the raise because you're super competent. You get the raise because everything's getting expensive. We don't want to give you a pay cut. So people will tend to attribute income rises to themselves and what makes them special, and then they see the prices getting higher, and it's like, and that's just things that's taking away all of my good earned potential. They don't see them as connected. It's a money illusion. But you're absolutely right. People are always complaining about higher prices. And I think part of this too is that universally, when we're talking like decades ago, when people are complaining about higher prices, they were also younger when those prices were lower. And so it's really easy to be like, this worked better when I was a kid. It's like you were also younger and you didn't have any responsibility. So you might be just attaching this memory to a time when things were better and you don't recognize the quality improvements. Yeah.
Why does it seem like from what like many don't see that inflation is like way more faster than salaries?
We can pull out the numbers and check. So people will say that, and we are seeing. It's going to be, for one, the economy is big and complicated. So there's going to be some industries and there's going to be some companies where inflation is growing faster than salaries. There's also going to be a delay. But generally speaking, my first instinct is to say, well, the people where that is happening are going to complain the loudest. And that's what you're going to hear. In other industries where it's keeping in pace or even exceeding inflation, people don't say anything because they're happy about it. And so then you don't necessarily hear about that. But we can always look at the data. Now, I'm happy to pull up the data in a moment. I want to do this with us. So there are two ways to adjust for inflation. The simple way that I'm going to have you know, because it's easy to memorize, and I know there's a fair number of equations in this unit, so we're just going to do this one. The simple way, but it's not completely accurate, is in order to find that real rate, you just take the nominal rate and subtract inflation. So if you got a 5% pay raise, but inflation was actually 6%, then in real terms, your pay fell by 1%. Again, this is not purely mathematically accurate, but I do have the actual equation in the notes if you care. On exams, I don't care which one you use, but this one is obviously one you can do in your head. Simple math. If a business, if a company, for example, or a bank wants to actually make a loan at 5%, and they know inflation will be 3%, what should they make on the loan? What should they print on the contract? 8%. Because the way to get 5%, if you know inflation will be 3%, is to charge 8%. This is why I say when inflation is fully anticipated, it doesn't matter. You just bake it right into the price that you charge. If you know that inflation is going to go up by 6%, then you can just give your workers a 6% salary raise, and then nothing in real terms happens. And everyone's fine and dandy. So when inflation is fully anticipated, it doesn't matter. Here's the thing. Inflation is never fully anticipated. We don't know. And when actual inflation does not match expected inflation, we get winners and losers. So, unanticipated. To be clear, unanticipated inflation is when the expected is less than the actual. Unanticipated deflation is when expected is greater than actual. So if I think inflation will be 6%, I will give a 6% raise. But if it's actually 8%, then the actual is greater than the expected, and I had unanticipated inflation. If the actual is 4%, then the actual is less than expected, and I'm going to get unanticipated deflation. So when figuring out who are the winners and losers, it's always going to be a reference to what we thought was going to happen, what actually happened, and then there will be winners and losers based on that difference, if that difference is positive or negative. Any questions so far? All right. So imagine there's unanticipated inflation. Who is made better off by this unanticipated inflation? Prices are suddenly a lot higher than we thought they'd be. Well, if they sell stuff, then they're made better off or worse off? Creditors? Why do you say creditors?
You take out a loan for 5%, inflation went higher, kind of people kind of gained it, right?
Well,
All the way around.
think about so go to this. If the real interest rate is this, I lend somebody at 8%, and it's actually 10% higher than I thought it would be, then I'm losing money in real terms.
Yeah.
So the people who are made worse off are lenders and savers. You know, imagine you put money in the bank. You're thinking, I'm going to make this amount of interest rate. And you're making this amount of interest rate, and then prices go up a great deal. Then adjusting for inflation in real terms, you might be losing money. Right? If inflation is exceeding your interest rate that you're getting because you put money in a bank account, then that money in real terms is actually getting smaller. Yeah.
So the people like the selling goods on employees, because they gave them 6%, it actually is 8% to their earning, actually 2%
Well, precisely because they don't necessarily know what's going to happen to inflation, they only give inflation after they know what they only give a raise, a COLA, after they know what inflation is. So, because they know inflation is never fully anticipated, which means people who get fixed incomes, they are made worse off. Right? We experience this with the release of inflation. You get paid the same amount, but prices are going up. In real terms, your income is falling. People who get fixed income, and by fixed income, I mean it's not like a commission. It's not something that's inherently tied to the price. If you get this salary, you get this hourly wage. It's the number that's printed there. Well, what's bad for one side is good for the other side. What's the opposite of a saver?
Spending.
Well, think of the other side of the transaction. Borrowers. If you borrow money, this is the amount of money that you were owed. It's printed on the contract. And then over the long run, inflation occurs, prices go up, your wages go up, but the amount of money that you owe is the same. You are made better off by unanticipated inflation. Because your interest rate, the real interest rate that you are charged, is going down. What's the opposite of a fixed income recipient? Who's the other side of that transaction?
People who work on commission.
Nope, that's gonna be a wash on average.
People who pay their employees with income.
People who pay the employees. Because think about it from the company's perspective. Prices are going up, revenue is going up, but the costs are the same because we're paying employees the same amount. Sure, not all costs are the same. Some of those input costs are going to go up as well, but there's a huge hunk of their expenses that are exactly the same because they're paying the same salaries. It's bad for these people. It's good for them. This is why during the inflation of the 2022 era, you saw corporate profits go up. This wasn't because companies were causing inflation. They were just happened to benefit from it because their costs were basically the same. They were a little higher, but their revenue was a lot higher. If we were to swap this unanticipated deflation, winners and losers swap around. So there's no point in writing it down. What's good in one, if it's good in one scenario, what's bad in the opposite scenario. Any questions? We're doing time. Oh, we got lots of time. Great. All right. It sounds like then that inflation just creates winners and losers, and it's kind of a wash. It's not a big deal. Oh yeah, go ahead. What's up? So if there's unanticipated deflation, that means that we expect a lot of inflation, but there's actually not that much inflation, right? So banks will create a particular interest rate with that in mind. Let's imagine, for example, we are trying to get a certain interest rate of, let's say, 3%. And let's imagine that, we think inflation will be, say, 2%, and so we charge money. Let's imagine that. But what if inflation is lower than we think it is? If inflation is lower than we think it is, it's 0, we don't get no sad real interest rate of 3%, we get a real interest rate of 5%. And so if you're a saver, you're getting a lot more money, right? In real terms, it's going up a lot. And as a result, you're made better off. Well, at the same time, if it ends up being a lot higher than we think it is, then your real rate will go Any other questions? Okay. So when it's fully anticipated, it doesn't matter. But inflation is never fully anticipated. It will sometimes create winners and losers. However, when inflation is really, really high, everyone's a loser. When inflation goes to crazy high levels, not mere 3% or 8% or even 16%, but when we get into hyperinflation territory, where inflation is really high, everyone's a loser. The most famous case of hyperinflation was Zimbabwe at around, I want to say it was 2008. No, 2008. Yeah, 2008. It got so high, it's hard to tell exactly how high it got. There are different estimates. But anyone want to guess about what the estimate, what the inflation rate was? What was the percent? 1,000%? 15%? 50%? Higher than 50%? Higher than 1,000?
Like 100,000.
Oh, you said 14. Oh, you should look at it. You look at those. Yeah. Yeah. No, 15 was right. 14.9 billion% inflation. It was, and occasionally this happens, right? Where like the prices were rising so quickly, you would be paid in one part of the day, and then people would take off work to go shopping because if they waited until they were done with work, prices would be higher. Prices were so high, people would sit down to eat at a restaurant, and then by the time they got the check, the prices was higher than when they ordered the food. Right? This is not a well-functioning economy. This is a hot mess, and you can still they had to dollarize, they had to just give up and make their own just rely on the U.S. dollar, but you can still buy notes from the Zimbabwe period.
$10 trillion.
Yeah, so I can't remember now. They're collector's items now. What is like notes for sale? Yeah, there were you can get notes up to $100 trillion notes. 100 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. I really want one, but now they're more valuable now as collector's items than they were as actual currency. They're like, this is not working, dude. I think you can buy one for like over $100 now.
That's awesome. They're like up for auction.
Yeah, it's auctions, but you know, you really want the high denomination ones. I really want to get a high denomination one. I'm wondering if maybe I can get the school to pay for it, because then it's a visual aid. Now, when I mentioned that, people sometimes ask, how the hell is that possible? No. You're going to ask me, how the hell is that possible? How is that possible? Oh, I have an activity for you then. We're going to show you how. This activity, I'm going to give everyone a bean. Just. Oh, no, only one. One, two, three. You pass it down. 1, 2, 3. One, two, three. Oh.
There's a brick of 1,000 uncirculated $50 trillion bills at auction right now for $5,700.
No, I'm not paying that much. That's a lot of.
They're uncirculated.
They're uncirculated. I don't know if being uncirculated is a big selling point for me. But I guess that's something you can factor the two down. Now, what we're going to do with these beans is we're going to have an auction. And you might be like, David, how the hell can we have an auction if we all only have one bean? How does one person outbid somebody else when we only have one bean? Well, what you do is you're welcome to form coalitions of people to sort of outbid one another as I show you this bag of candy. I'm auctioning off this bag of candy to you. Do I hear one bean for this bag of candy? One bean. Do I hear two beans? Again, you can form partnerships and split the bag. I don't think any of you want to eat the entire bag of candy for lunch. You know what? Two beans? Two beans? Do I hear three beans? Three beans. Over here, this center first. Four beans. Six beans. It's six is not seven. I need at least seven. 7 beans. 9 beans.
You want to join 7 plus 6, 13. 13 beans.
13. 13. Is that just the entire half of this room?
Yeah.
3, 6, 9, 12, 13. 3, 6, 9, 12, 13. There's 13 on each side of the room. So unless you want to poach somebody from that side, I think that we're going to have a winner. 13 going. I should write this down. So 13 going once, 13 going twice. I think we sold 13. So I'm gonna need my beans. Give me my 13 beans. Let's count them because I always have to check because sometimes people cheat because they think that they're part of a group but they're not. 3, 6, 9. And 13. Okay. Who orchestrated this little coalition?
Team effort.
You went first. Well, I heard from you first, so there you go. You get it first, and then distribute it. I don't know how you want to distribute it, but distribute it how you want. You can do it now if you want.
No.
And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give everybody 2 more. Well, I'm gonna give you guys. I'll just give you 1 more. So let's do. Yeah, everyone gets 2 more beans. So some of you will have 3 beans. I'm sorry, some of you will have 1 bean, and some of you will have 2 beans. I'm sorry, some of you will have 2 beans, and some of you will have 3 beans. There you go. So you each get 2 more beans. 1, 2, 3. And then 4.
No, if you can only pay me about more people.
And then you guys each get 2 beans. So here's 2 more beans for you. Two more beans for you. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone gets 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Everyone gets 2 more beans. So we'll take 2 and pass them. Okay. All of you should now have either 2 beans or 3 beans, right? Guess what I have? An identical bag of candy. Do I hear 1 bean for this identical bag of candy? 1 bean. Do I hear 2 beans? 3 beans? 6 beans? 9 beans? 12 beans? 14.
28 beans.
Do you have 28?
Yeah, you got 14.
This was. Oh, wait. Well, I'm just saying. I think they're gonna give me.
How much do we have?
You have
32 beans. There. Wait, oh, there's 4.
we have 15. I mean, they're already talking in the 20s.
So what, 26? Yeah, 26 beans.
You have 26.
Yes.
You have what? You're getting 39? I think the high bid is 39, but I want to get confirmation of that.
Yeah, 26 beans.
Yeah, they're already talking 39.
How do they get 39 beans?
Because they still have the bean for the first round.
Oh man. All right, never mind.
What'd you say? What's 39? I think we have 39, right? We have confirmation 39. So that should be 13 people. I think you have 13. Yes, great. And you did that in your head, right? Yeah.
Professor,
All right. Yeah.
can we sell our bag candy to them for 39 beans? Candy?
No, that would ruin the experiment. All right. I think 39 beats is going to go. This is the last round. So going once, going twice. You win. So what? What do you want? You won. This is the last round. Okay, let me do a little bit of math here. So I gave 2, that's 50, 2 plus 13. Okay. Let's take a look to see how this went. In the first round, the total number of beans, the money supply in the room was 26. And the price that you paid for this bag of candy was 13. In the second round, I counted 65 total beans in the room because it would be 2 for each student plus 1 for the people that didn't sell it the last time around. So we more than doubled the money supply, and guess what happened? We more than doubled the price. And you quite frankly did you tripled the price. You didn't probably need to do that, but you wanted to make sure you got that. You want to know what causes inflation? Printing more money. If you put more money into the system, you're going to get consumers outbidding one another, and then the prices go up. It's the only way to make it happen. In fact, we have an equation. It's called the quantity theory of money equation. I'm actually going to put it right here so it's a little more. Here's the equation. M is the money supply. It's how many dollars are circulated in the economy. V is something we haven't talked about yet. How many of you have had physics before? Right? What does V stand for in physics? V, the speed over velocity? Velocity, right? Just velocity. Yeah, what's velocity? I like that you use the term displacement. I'm like, that's not how I would judge levels, how fast things go. But yours is better. Yeah, yours is better. Yeah. How quickly something is moving, right? Displacement over time. Well, velocity of money recognizes that when someone spends the money, it's not set on fire. Somebody else has the money, and that same money is then used again. Actually, let me pull out a better dollar for this. But I'm not that rich, so I don't have like 2 20s on me. But here we go. In other words, one $5 used twice is the same as 2 $5 used once. So we don't want to just think about how many dollars are in the system. We want to think about how often they are used. And that is velocity. How quickly money is moving through the economy, or how often $1 changes hands. PL, we just talked about. What is PL?
Price level.
Price level. What do you suppose capital Y sub R is? GDP. What's the R part mean? Real. In other words, GDP adjusted for inflation. When you see the GDP numbers, those are bundles of two different things. GDP can go up because we're producing more stuff, but GDP can go up because prices are going up. Remember, GDP is the measure of the total market value of final goods and services produced in a country's total market value. If prices are going up due to inflation, GDP is going up even if you're not producing anything. So what this equation does is it splits them in two. It says, look, there's a price level component of GDP, and then there's the actual production component of GDP. And so the price level component, that's just going to be price level, and then real GDP is, income adjusted for inflation, or how much we produce adjusted for inflation. It's the real GDP. Hey, Edward, did you have your hand up? I thought someone had their hand up. No, someone over here. All right, must be my imagination. Yeah, Leah.
That's YR.
Yep, YR. Why did Zimbabwe get massive amounts of inflation? Because they kept printing money. They kept printing money because it's not a very well-functioning economy, not a very well-functioning state, and they were printing money to pay off people so that they didn't overthrow them. The problem is those people spent the money because that's what you do with money is you spend it, and then that fueled inflation. And so what they do? They say, oh, prices are higher. I know what we'll do. We'll give them a cost of living adjustment. How are we going to give them a cost of living adjustment? We'll just print more money. And then the prices started going up. And then people started anticipating more money to go up, the prices to go up. So prices went up even more because they were just spending that much faster. And so velocity is kicking up too because people don't want to hold on to money because it's losing value over time. And so then it just kind of sprouted, became a hot mess, and is now in every single textbook. This is what happens when you print lots of money. Yeah. Yeah, Weimar, Germany. Like during that collapse, and then it's like they were printing a whole bunch of money because they were trying to pay off all these restitutions, and then there was a depression. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yeah.
Well, it's painful to stop these. I mean, I don't know. Again, it's not a coincidence that Hitler took power, around that time. But their economy kind of just went through the wood chipper essentially. I mean, this is what leads to Hitler taking power. This is what leads to World War II. And then the economy just kind of resets, right?
Oh.
Yeah, because it was devastated, right? Germany was devastated. Now this doesn't mean, I guess if we just don't print money, we won't have to worry about inflation. The problem is if you don't print money anymore, GDP is rising, and if GDP is rising, but M and V stay the same, because you're not creating any more money, then what happens to the price level? It goes down. It has to go down to balance the equation. This is why I gave you only one bag of candy. If I gave you a whole bunch of money, but I also sold a whole bunch of bags of candy, the average price wouldn't change. Because the money is then matching up with the goods. And you're not seeing that price increase. Maybe the first one will be really high, but the other ones will be really low. Economists measure the money supply in different ways. The most popular one is M2. You want to know why we had inflation in 2022? Because we created a whole bunch of money. Because the pandemic fueled a lot of government spending, and a lot of that government spending ended up being created. And so M2 shot up and rose. And this is why we got inflation. It wasn't corporate greed. It wasn't, at least to a large part, supply chain issues. Because if it was supply chain issues, it would have been one and done and went back down again. No, it went up, it stayed up because the government created a whole bunch of money. Inflation occurs when too much money chases too. Remember that? Who said that? You know who said that? Do you know who's quoted? Milton Friedman. Milton Friedman, Nobel laureate in economics, who did a lot of work on monetary theory. He's the one that came up with the phrase. Inflation occurs when too much money chases too few goods. Okay. Any questions? Yeah. What's up, David? Well, I mean, that's going to be baked into the GDP, right? Because if you have more people, then you have more GDP. If you have more GDP, then you're going to need more money to meet all those goods and services that are being produced.
So, like, you say like inflation happens because there's more people.
Well, it's a balance issue, right? Because again, let's go back to the equations. Remember, inflation is going to be an increase in PL. So if you're saying there's more people, I'm saying, well, there's more GDP. And all things being equal, PL would fall. Inflation occurs because maybe this went up a whole bunch. And this one only went up a little. And so therefore the rest of that increase has to go to PL. Right? Inflation can also occur if GDP falls and you keep the money supply the same, you still have too much money chasing too few goods. But usually it's the other way around. Because usually GDP is increasing. And it gets tricky because things might be happening with B. Expectations certainly matter quite a bit, but fundamentally, it is about MV equals PLYR. Inflation is everywhere and always a monetary phenomenon. And with that in mind, I let you go. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see all of you on Tuesday.